Welcome to Every Country Explained. Today, China. China, officially the People's Republic of China, PRC, is a country in East Asia. It is the second most populous country after India, with a population exceeding 1.4 billion, 17% of the world's population, across an area of 9.6 million square kilometers, 3,700,000 square miles, making it the third largest country by area. It is divided into 33 province-level divisions, including 7 million years ago, with unconfirmed sites as old as 2 million years ago. Modern Homo sapiens are attested from around 50,000 years ago. Following the end of the last glacial period, in about 8000 BCE, pottery-making Neolithic cultures emerged. By the 6000s BCE, sedentary agricultural societies had spread across the lower Yellow River Basin. These societies became increasingly complex, urbanized, and stratified, but many experienced a population collapse in the late 2000s BCE for unclear reasons. 1000 BCE After 2000 BCE, a Bronze Age culture emerged in the Central Plain, dubbed the Erlitou culture after its main site. Erlitou has been controversially identified with the Xia, the traditionally accepted first dynasty, but no written records exist to confirm this. The Shang dynasty purportedly succeeded the Xia around 1600 BCE, with its early stages tentatively identified with an expansionist state known archaeologically as the Erligang culture. The historicity of the late Shang is attested through divinational writings in the Oracle bone script. These are the earliest known form of writing in China and the ancestor of modern Chinese characters. The Shang were overthrown by the Zhou. The Zhou ruled over a vast and loose confederation of vassal states across central China, gradually weakened by regional lords. Centralized authority finally collapsed in 771 BCE, giving way to constant regional warfare. During the Eastern Zhou, a multitude of small aristocratic spring and autumn period polities evolved into 7 territorial warring states over the following centuries. Literary and philosophical developments of this period include the emergence of various schools of thought, such as Confucianism, Taoism, Moism, and legalism, alongside Chinese classics like the Analects and the Tao Te Ching. 210 BCE and the 220s BCE, Qin rapidly conquered the other warring states. In 221, its ruler Qin Shi Huang proclaimed himself the first emperor, Huangdi, and founded the Qin dynasty. He led an autocratic legalist state organized in a system of commanderies and counties. The dynasty. Since ancient times, Chinese culture has been heavily influenced by Confucianism. Chinese culture, in turn, has heavily influenced East Asia and Southeast Asia. For much of the country's dynastic era, opportunities for social advancement could be provided by high performance in the prestigious imperial examinations. The literary emphasis of the exams affected the general perception of cultural refinement in China, promoting calligraphy, poetry, and painting. With the rise of Chinese nationalism and the end of the Cultural Revolution, various forms of traditional Chinese art, literature, music, film, fashion, and architecture have seen a revival. The classical texts of China encompass a wide range of thoughts and subjects. Among the most significant early works are the 4 books and 5 classics. These texts were the cornerstone of the Confucian curriculum sponsored by the state throughout the dynastic periods. Inherited from the classic of poetry, classical Chinese poetry developed over millennia. Chinese historiography began with the Shiji, part of the 24 histories, which set a vast stage for Chinese fictions along with Chinese mythology and folklore. The Ming era saw a boom of Chinese classical fiction, as represented by the 4 great classical novels. Along with wuxia, martial arts, fictions, it remains an enduring source of popular culture in the Chinese sphere of influence. Chinese architecture is characterized by bilateral symmetry, use of enclosed open spaces, feng shui, e.g. directional hierarchies. Chinese architecture varies widely based on status or affiliation, such as whether the structures were constructed for emperors, commoners, or for the Himalaya, Karakoram, Pamir and Tian Shan mountain ranges in the west separate China from much of South and Central Asia. The Yangtze and Yellow Rivers, the 3rd and 6th longest in the world, respectively, run from the Tibetan Plateau to the densely populated eastern seaboard. China's coastline along the Pacific Ocean is 14,500 kilometers, 9,000 miles long, bounded by the Bohai, Yellow, East China and South China Seas. China connects through the Kazakh border to the Eurasian steppe. China's landscapes vary significantly across its vast territory. In the east, along the shores of the Yellow Sea and the East China Sea, there are extensive and densely populated alluvial plains, while on the edges of the Inner Mongolian Plateau in the north, broad grasslands predominate. Southern China is dominated by hills and low mountain ranges, while the Central East hosts the deltas of the Yangtze, Jiangnan, and Yellow Rivers. The world's highest point, Mount Everest, 8,848 miles, lies on the Sino-Nepalese border. China's lowest point, and the world's third lowest, is the dried lake bed of Ading Lake, -154 miles, in the Turpan Depression. Despite spanning the equivalent of 5 geographical time zones, from UTC+5 to UTC+9, China uses a single national time zone, China Standard Time, UTC+8. In the winter, northern winds coming from high-latitude areas are cold and dry. In summer, southern winds from coastal areas at lower latitudes are warm and moist. Kopengeiger Climate Classification Map for mainland China. The expansion of China's deserts, particularly the Gobi, has posed a persistent threat. Although barrier tree lines planted since the 1970s have reduced the frequency of sandstorms, prolonged drought and poor agricultural practices have resulted in dust storms plaguing northern China each spring, which spread across East Asia. Water quality, erosion, and pollution control have become important issues in China's foreign relations. Melting glaciers in the Himalayas could potentially lead to water shortages for hundreds of millions of people. In order to limit climate change in China to 1.7 degrees Fahrenheit, Chinese cuisine is known for its breadth of cooking methods and ingredients. Rice is a staple food in the south and northeast, while wheat products such as noodles are staples in the north. Soybean products such as tofu and soy milk are a popular source of protein. Pork is now the most popular meat in China, accounting for about 60% of the country's total meat consumption. Pork-free Chinese Islamic cuisine is served at halal-certified restaurants in various regions, while vegetarian Buddhist cuisine is commonly found at restaurants near shrines and temples. 8 major cuisines. Chinese. CN. Archived from the original on September 12, 2015. Retrieved July 17, 2015. Xinhua News Agency. Archived from the original on September 26, 2013. Retrieved July 17, 2015. A Trillion-Dollar Opportunity, A Craving for Meat, a report on China's meat consumption market. McKinsey. Retrieved October 31, 2025. Provinsi Guangdong Punya Pemandangan Indah Layaknya Lukisan. Compass. Wisatawan Indonesia tidak perlu khawatir ketika menjelajah beragam destinasi wisata di China. Saat ini restoran-restoran bersertifikasi halal dapat ditemui di China, meskipun jumlahnya belum banyak, menyuguhkan hidangan khas China Utara seperti daerah Xinjiang, Ningxia, Xi'an, dan Lanzhou yang kebanyakan penduduknya beragama Islam. Campbell, Charlie, January 22, 2021. How China Could Change the World by Taking Meat Off the Menu. Archived from the original on November 1, 2025. Vegetarian restaurants are commonplace near Buddhist temples and shrines. Since the reform and opening up in 1978, it developed into an influential and highly diversified economy. With a GDP of CNY 140 trillion in 2025, China has the world's second largest economy in terms of nominal GDP, and the world's largest in terms of purchasing power parity, PPP. As of 2025, China accounts for around 17% of the global economy by nominal GDP. China is one of the world's fastest-growing major economies, with its economic growth having been almost consistently above 5% since the beginning of the reform and opening up in 1978. Per capita incomes have risen significantly. When the PRC was founded in 1949, per capita income in China was one-fifth of the world average. These incomes now roughly equal the world average. China brought more people out of extreme poverty than any other country in history. Between 1978 and 2018, China reduced extreme poverty by 800 million, 23, with the average standard of living multiplying by a factor of 26. The country has not run a trade deficit since 1993, with its trade surplus reaching a record $1.2 trillion in 2025. China became the world's largest trading nation in 2013 by the sum of imports and exports, as well as the world's largest commodity importer, accounting for roughly 45% of the maritime dry bulk market. The Chinese government has promoted the internationalization of the renminbi in order to wean itself off its dependence on the US dollar. The renminbi is the world's fourth most traded currency as of 2023. Modern-day China is often described as an example of state capitalism or party-state capitalism, with both market forces and the state playing a major role in the economy. China officially calls its economic system as the socialist market economy, in which the market plays a decisive role in resource allocation under the macro control of the socialist state. The CCP posits that China is in the primary stage of socialism, the first stage of building a communist society, in a stage where there is private ownership. According to official statistics, privately owned companies constitute more than 60% of China's GDP, the rest comprising state-owned enterprises. 20T has a high level of economic inequality, which has increased quickly since the economic reforms. China's development is highly uneven, its major cities and coastal areas are far more prosperous. The first humans in China arrived during the Paleolithic. China is the world's largest manufacturer and makes up about 1/5 of the global economy. It is the second largest economy on Earth. Chinese characters are among the oldest writing systems on Earth, with a literary tradition dating back millennia to the Chinese classics. It has over 60 World Heritage Sites, including the Great Wall and Grand Canal. The Han, mostly speakers of modern-day China, is often described as an example of state capitalism or party-state capitalism, with both market forces and the state playing a major role in the economy. China officially calls its economic system as the socialist market economy, in which the market plays a decisive role in resource allocation under the macro control of the socialist state. The CCP posits that China is in the primary stage of socialism, the first stage of building a communist society, in a stage where there is private ownership. According to official statistics, privately owned companies constitute more than 60% of China's GDP, the rest comprising state-owned enterprises. 20T has a high level of economic inequality, which has increased quickly since the economic reforms. China's development is highly uneven, its major cities and coastal areas are far more prosperous than its rural and interior regions. Thanks for watching China Explained. Subscribe to Trendlens for more country videos. Which country should we cover next? Let us know in the comments.